The Strait of Hormuz has for centuries been one of the most important maritime choke points in the world, linking the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and onward to the open ocean. At its narrowest point, the strait is about 33 kilometers or 21 miles wide, while the total navigable shipping channel is much smaller, consisting of two main lanes, each about 3 kilometers or 2 miles wide, separated by a buffer zone. Its importance began to emerge prominently in ancient times, around the Achaemenid period, 6th century BCE, when long-distance maritime trade between Mesopotamia, Persia, India, and Arabia expanded and increasingly relied on this narrow passage. Because of this strategic position, successive empires and rulers, many of them Muslim, sought to control it, not only for political dominance, but also to extract revenue from the rich trade that passed through it. The very name, Hormuz, is believed to derive from the Middle Persian word Hormuz, or Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity in ancient Persian religion, suggesting a connection with divinity and royal authority. Over time, the Strait of Hormuz got its name from the nearby island of Hormuz and the kingdom of Hormuz that controlled the area during the 14th to 16th centuries. The strait became widely known as the Strait of Hormuz because the Hormuzi rulers were the ones who controlled and regulated trade through the narrow passage, collecting tolls and customs duties from passing ships. Essentially, the name reflects both geography and political authority. It is the Strait by Hormuz Island, historically dominated by the Hormuz Kingdom. Over time, even after the Portuguese took over the island in 1507, the name Strait of Hormuz continued to be used on maps and in navigation charts, cementing its identity in maritime history till now. In the early period, under the Achaemenid and later Sasanian Persian empires, rulers such as Darius I and Khosrow I exercised control over the northern shores of the strait. Their approach to taxation was relatively organized and indirect. Rather than taxing ships in the narrow passage itself, they levied customs duties at ports and collected tribute from coastal regions. The merchandise moving through the strait during this time included luxury goods like Indian spices, Arabian incense, pearls from the Gulf, and fine textiles from Persia and India. The taxation system was administrative and stable, designed to facilitate rather than obstruct trade. With the rise of Islam in the 7th century, the region came under the control of the early caliphates, including rulers such as the second caliph and later the Abbasid caliph Harun al-Rashid. During this period, taxation took on a more structured and religiously informed character. Muslim traders paid zakat, while foreign merchants were subject to ushur, a customs duty, often around 1/10 of the goods value. These taxes were generally collected at major ports like Basra, rather than directly within the strait. Trade flourished with goods like silk from China, spices from India and Southeast Asia, dates, horses, and pearls moving through the waterway. The system was relatively fair and encouraged commercial expansion, with some preferential treatment for Muslim merchants. A major turning point came with the rise of the Kingdom of Hormuz in the 13th to early 16th century, ruled by Muslim kings such as Shahab al-Din Mahmud. The Kingdom of Hormuz was a small but highly strategic maritime kingdom located on the island of Hormuz, off the southern coast of present-day Iran. It was founded in the early 13th century by King Abu Sa'id, who established control over the island and the surrounding trade routes. The kingdom's rulers, often called the Hormuzi kings, maintained authority through a centralized administration and strong naval presence. The name Hormuz is derived from the ancient Persian god Ahura Mazda, or Hormuz, reflecting the region's historical and religious significance. Originally founded on the mainland coast of Persia, the kingdom later shifted to the island of Hormuz for security reasons, transforming it into one of the most prosperous entrepôts in the medieval world. Its rulers built a highly cosmopolitan port city where merchants from Persia, India, Arabia, East Africa, and even China gathered. The kingdom did not rely on agriculture. Instead, its wealth came almost entirely from maritime trade. It developed an advanced administrative system to regulate commerce, maintain warehouses, and ensure the safety of traders. Unlike earlier systems, the rulers of Hormuz imposed direct transit tolls on ships passing through the strait in addition to customs duties and port fees. Their taxation was systematic, predictable, and relatively moderate, which encouraged merchants to prefer Hormuz over rival ports. The range of merchandise expanded significantly during this time. Indian spices, Chinese porcelain, Persian silk, Arabian horses, gold, ivory, pearls, and precious stones all passed through Hormuz. The kingdom became immensely wealthy by acting as an intermediary hub, redistributing goods between East and West. Its prosperity and strategic importance eventually attracted foreign powers. The arrival of the Portuguese in the early 16th century marked a shift toward militarized control. Under commanders like Alfonso de Albuquerque, the Portuguese seized the kingdom of Hormuz in 1507 from the local Hormuzi kings, who were the hereditary kings of the island founded by King Abu Sa'id, and imposed the Cartaz system, which required all ships to purchase a naval pass to legally sail in the region. Taxes were enforced through naval power, and ships without permits risked seizure. Duties were often heavy and coercive. Despite this, the types of goods remained similar: spices, textiles, and luxury items, but now also included European goods entering Asian markets. The nature of taxation changed significantly, becoming more forceful and restrictive compared to earlier Muslim systems. In 1622, the Portuguese were expelled by the Safavid ruler Shah Abbas I, who restored Persian control with the help of European allies. The Safavids shifted taxation back toward port-based customs duties, particularly at Bandar Abbas, rather than direct tolls in the strait. Trade revived under a more regulated and less militarized system. Goods passing through continued to include silk, a major Safavid export, spices, textiles, and precious commodities. Later, from the 18th century onward, the British, especially through the British East India Company, exerted indirect control over the region. Rather than imposing direct taxes on the strait, they influenced local rulers and trade agreements, shaping commerce through treaties and naval dominance. By this time, in addition to traditional goods, new commodities such as coffee and eventually oil in the modern period became significant. The land known today as Iran has been conquered and reshaped several times in history, but the most decisive conquest occurred in the 7th century. Before that, Iran was the center of the powerful Sasanian Empire, which controlled vast territories and played a major role in regional politics. This changed during the expansion of the early Islamic State. Between 633 and 651 CE, Muslim armies under the leadership of the second caliph defeated the Sasanian forces in a series of decisive battles. The last Sasanian king, Yazdegerd III, was ultimately defeated, and by 651 CE, the empire came to an end. Iran was then incorporated into the Islamic Caliphate. However, Iran's history did not end there. In the 13th century, it faced another major upheaval during the Mongol invasions led by Genghis Khan and his successors. The Mongol conquest of Iran took place in stages, beginning around 1219 CE. But the key figure who captured Iran as a whole under Mongol authority was Hulagu Khan. On the orders of the great Khan Möngke Khan, Hulagu led a major campaign into Persia beginning in the 1250s, and by 1256 to 58 CE, his forces had taken control of all of Iran and much of Mesopotamia, including the sack of Baghdad in 1258. He then established the Mongol Ilkhanate dynasty in Iran, a new Mongol ruling state that governed the region for several decades. Beginning around 1219 CE, the Mongols swept through the region, destroying cities, disrupting trade, and causing immense loss of life. Although this conquest was highly destructive, Mongol Khans in Persia ruled for nearly 80 years. Over time, some Ilhan rulers converted to Islam and began to adopt local Iranian culture, most notably Mahmud Ghazan, reigned 1295 to 1304, who reformed the state and made it more integrated with Iranian society. The last widely recognized effective Ilhan ruler was Abu Sa'id Bahadur Khan, died 1335. When he died without a male heir, after 1335, the central authority of the Ilkhanate disintegrated because powerful Mongol nobles and local warlords competed for power. Various regional dynasties and rulers emerged in different parts of Iran. Example, the Jalarids in western Iran and Iraq, the Muzaffarids in Fars, and later the Timurids, gradually restoring Iranian and Turkic rule, eventually preparing the way for unified Iranian rule under the Ismail I, died 1524, who established the Safavid Empire in 1501, reunifying most of Iran as an independent Persian state. The Iranian Revolution, also called the Islamic Revolution, was a major turning point in the history of Iran that took place between 1978 and 1979, overthrowing the monarchy and establishing the Islamic Republic of Iran. The revolution began as widespread popular protests against the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, fueled by discontent over political repression, economic inequality, Western influence in Iranian affairs, and a perception that the Shah's modernization policies were undermining traditional and religious values. These protests grew throughout 1978, involving strikes, demonstrations, and civil resistance across cities and sectors of society. A central figure in the movement was Ruhollah Khomeini, a Shiite clique, who had been exiled for his opposition to the Shah's secular and Western-aligned policies. Speeches circulated widely among Iranians framed the struggle as both political and moral, calling for an end to the monarchy and the establishment of a new government based on Islamic principles. On February 11, 1979, the Shah's regime effectively collapsed, and Iranians voted overwhelmingly in a national referendum to abolish the monarchy and establish an Islamic republic in April 1979, formally replacing the old state with a new theocratic system guided by the principle of vilayat-e-faqih, guardianship of the Islamic jurist, placing ultimate authority in a religious leader. Iran's importance in present-day conflicts is closely tied to its geography and strategic position. It lies along the northern edge of the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but extremely vital passage that connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and ultimately the open ocean. At its narrowest point, the strait is about 33 kilometers or 21 miles wide, while the total navigable shipping channel is much smaller, consisting of two main lanes, each about 3 kilometers or 2 miles wide, separated by a buffer zone. Despite its limited width, it handles a massive volume of global trade, especially oil shipments. The depth of the water is sufficient for large oil tankers, but the confined space makes navigation sensitive and strategically vulnerable. Because of this, Iran holds a position of enormous strategic leverage. Any disruption in this strait can immediately affect global oil prices and international trade. This makes Iran a central player in global economic stability as well as regional security. The Strait of Hormuz serves as a crucial route for export and import of key commodities, especially energy resources between the Middle East and the rest of the world. The countries located along the Persian Gulf, such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Oman, are among the world's leading exporters of crude oil, liquefied natural gas, and petroleum products. These countries rely heavily on this strait to transport their resources to international markets. The main commodities exported through this passage include crude oil, which forms the largest share, along with natural gas, especially LNG from Qatar, as well as refined petroleum products and petrochemicals. Some other goods, such as metals and fish, especially from Oman, also pass through this route, but energy resources dominate the trade. On the other hand, the primary buyers of these commodities are major industrial and energy-dependent economies. China is the largest importer of Gulf oil, followed by India, Japan, Pakistan, and South Korea, all of which rely heavily on imported energy to sustain their industries and economic growth. In addition, countries within the European Union also import significant quantities of oil and gas from the region. The importance of the Strait of Hormuz in the ongoing Iran war is its role as the world's most vital energy chokepoint. A significant portion, around 20% of global oil and gas supply, normally passes through this narrow passage connecting the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman. During the current conflict, Iran has used its geographic position to restrict and threaten shipping through the strait, turning it into a powerful strategic tool. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz would affect both types of countries, those who use the passage directly and those who do not use it directly, but in different ways. Major importers like China, India, Japan, and South Korea depend heavily on oil and gas coming through this strait. If it is closed, their energy supplies would be disrupted, leading to shortages of fuel and electricity. Industries in these countries would slow down due to lack of energy. Transportation costs would rise, and overall economic activity would decline. These countries would also face a sharp increase in import bills, putting pressure on their economies and currencies. Similarly, exporting countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, and Kuwait would suffer because they would be unable to sell their oil easily, resulting in loss of revenue and economic instability. On the other hand, countries that do not directly use the Strait of Hormuz would still be indirectly affected. Even if they import oil from other regions, global oil prices would rise sharply due to reduced supply. This means countries in Europe, Africa, and the Americas would face higher fuel costs, leading to inflation and increased cost of living. Global trade would also slow down, affecting exports and imports worldwide. In addition, financial markets across the world could become unstable due to uncertainty, reducing investment and economic growth. In conclusion, countries using the Strait of Hormuz would face direct supply shocks and economic disruption, while countries not using it would experience indirect effects through rising prices, inflation, and global economic slowdown. This shows that the strait is not only important for specific countries, but for the entire global economy.